Today I'm going to pour some injection molded baits. Before we start that though, there's some important stuff you need to remember. When you're doing injection molded baits, you got to remember that the plastic is really hot. So you're going to have some safety equipment with you before you start. I wear goggles. You don't want the stuff to splash up in your eyes and cause damage that way. I wear a respirator, and I wear this because the fumes of this stuff is pretty nasty. So if you wear this, you're going to knock out most of that smell. So respirator, and then I also wear gloves. Good idea to always have gloves on because that plastic will burn your hands if it spills on you in any way. And this stuff does splash around a little bit, so you just want to protect yourself. The gloves, respirator, goggles, a long sleeve shirt. Before I start pouring, I will roll these sleeves down. You want to make sure your skin's covered up. The more of your skin that you cover up, the less likely you're going to get burned. What we're going to be pouring today are some craws and some creature baits. I call these the swamp donkey. This is my little creature bait here. This is a two-tone one right here. See how I've poured a white belly? On the back I've got the watermelon. So that's a great looking, the light here. That's a great looking two-color bait. I'm not going to be pouring that today. If I did pour a two-color bait, what I would do is I'd have two pots. One, I would hand pour the white belly first. Then I'd close the mold and I'd take the injector here and I inject the second color up into there. The molds we're going to be using, this one right here is the swamp donkey, which is the creature bait. You can see how that looks right there. And then the beast craw, I call it, that's this mold right here. And what you'll do is you close these up, or clamp them shut, you put the injector in here, and then you just push down the plastisol into that. So we're going to do that now. When I'm pouring these baits, I'm going to have the safety gear on, so I probably won't be talking much, but you'll get an idea of what it is that we're doing with these baits. Today we're going to be pouring these creatures and the craws in the Carolina pumpkin color. I'm going to call them just the Carolina craw, as well called the crawfish. I've already poured up a few baits last night. I did the watermelons last night. You take a look at those. That's what the finished product will look like right there. These are the craws and the creature baits. A couple other things we need to remember before we get started. You want to work in a very well ventilated area. I've got a garage door over here, and then the front of my garage is out there, so I've got a wind tunnel going through. You want to make sure you have plenty of ventilation going on because these fumes are pretty bad, and again that's why I'm wearing the ventilator. But you want to make sure also that you're working in a very well ventilated area. Okay, we're going to get started. First thing you need is plastisol. What I've got here is a 2.5 gallons from Bear's Baits. You can pick up plastisol from a couple of different places. Lure Craft has it, Caney Creek, Bear's Baits. The stuff that I'm using today will be from Bear's Baits. What I do initially is I'm going to heat that up in the Pyrex in the microwave, and I take it in for about 2 minutes until it's broken it down pretty good. I then pour it into a pan, which I'm going to be using on this burner here. I just got a single burner you can pick up anywhere. I picked it up from Walgreens. And I'm going to heat it up, and what that does is it allows me to keep the temperature pretty consistent so it doesn't get too cold or too hot. I can control it and get multiple pours in. So the first thing, microwave it. I do about a half a cup, and I'll do it for 2 minutes. From there I pour it into the pouring pan here, and at that time I'll add on the different colors. For what I'm using today, the Carolina pumpkin, I'm going to be using some black ink, some Carolina pumpkin ink, and then you add your glitter at the same time. For my particular bait that I'm making, I'm going to be using a .035 black glitter and also a .015 green glitter. Mix that in and it gives it just a nice look too. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing you want to do is take your plastisol and you've got to shake it up really good. You've got to shake this up really good because you've got the hardener in there and it settles down to the bottom. So by shaking it up, you're mixing that up and you're going to get a better consistency with your plastic. Once I've got that done, I will pour it into my Pyrex bowl here. Now I'm going to be doing a half a cup. You want to measure it because you're going to be making a recipe down the road, depending on what colors you're using, and you want it to be pretty consistent. There we go. So I've got a half a cup of plastisol. I'm going to pop that into the microwave and get the process started. Okay. Alright, for the sake of this video, I'm not wearing the eye protector or the aspirator. I would never do that if I'm pouring these otherwise, but I wouldn't be able to talk if I'm wearing that stuff. So I've heated up my plastisol for 2 minutes, it's ready to go into the pot here. I'm going to scoop as much of that into the pot as I can get in there. Now remember, this stuff's super hot, so you do not want to touch it. Alright, and then I'm going to get this going. It's not fully ready yet. I'm going to have to heat it up a little bit, stir it, make sure it's the right consistency for what I want to start my pours. I need to get my molds ready. I want to clamp these shut. This one here is the craw. And I put 3 clamps on there just to make sure it's nice and tightly closed. And this one here, my creature bait mold. Same thing, you put the clamps on there. And I'm putting 3 clamps on that as well. Make sure it's tightly closed. Let me get that away for you for now. Alright, with the plastisol, when you're heating it up in a pan, you want to make sure you put some heat stabilizer in there. And what that does is it keeps it from burning. I put a little bit of that in there. Start stirring that up. You can see the smoke coming up. This stuff stinks, which is why I'm wearing the aspirator most times. But for this pour only, I'm not, just so we can see how that works. Okay, the plastisol is still heating up right now, but as it's heating, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the color and the sparkle, or the flake. First, I'm going to be putting in some black, and again, this stuff, you don't want to put a lot. Particular recipe I'm using, you just put a couple drops of each of these in there. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of the flake that I want. There goes the green. And you don't want to put too much of any of this. A little bit of the black. That should be enough right there. In fact, it might be too much in the black, but we'll find out in a minute. Alright, start stirring that up. Still has a long ways to go. It's still real thick. You got to get it down so it's just a real liquidy type of consistency, so that when I suck it up into the injector, it's ready to go into the molds. So I'm going to keep that going. It needs a lot more of the other coloring that I want to put in there. Okay, the consistency is right where I want it. It's got to be a pretty good liquid. You take your injector, you're going to fill it, and then empty it out to make sure you've heated this thing up good. So I'll do that real quick. I'm ready to go. Put that right here in the sprue. Push it on in there. And that should be good. I'm going to top it off just to make sure. That's going into my creature bait here. And that's a good pour right there. Alright, at this point you just wait. You're going to wait for your molds to cure. Doesn't take a long time. These molds are actually pretty cold, so they're going to cool that down pretty quick. All your leftover plastic, just put it right back in the pot. You can use that again. Never do this without gloves on. You will burn yourself quite a bit. There's still a lot left in there. Let that cool down a little more. Alright, we are ready to take a look here at the swamp donkey, I call it. We're going to pull that out. This is my creature bait. See if that mold came out. Lift off the top, and it came out nicely. So there you go. That right there is a Carolina craw. I'll end up cutting off the top there in a little bit, but not right now. But there you got a view of the Carolina pumpkin version of the swamp donkey. Looks pretty good. Let's see if you can see it right there. And that's what an injection pour looks like. Comes out really nice. Get it ready to do another one. Okay, this has been sitting for about 4 or 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and open that up. This is the crawfish mold here. And there we go. Put that here on the... And I'll trim off the excess plastic later. But for now, you get an idea of what... It's upside down. Alright, there you go. You get an idea of what the crawfish looks like. There is a Carolina pumpkin crawfish. I'll later go ahead and trim off the excess plastic that I have there. But that's a nice bait that's come out. And I'll also cut off the end here where the sprue was at. Right up here, you just chop that off on the end. Alright, so we poured a couple molds now. We had poured one of the creature baits and one of the crawfish. Take off my gloves here. At this point, you're going to trim these things up. Just use some scissors. Take the craw. Well, first we're going to take the creature bait. Cut off the nose. You take the excess plastisol, you just drop it right back in the pot. You're going to use that later. Now we'll do the same thing here for the crawfish. Come up here at the top. Cut off the excess here. You can also clean up the extra plastic. All that goes right back in the pot. And what you've got when you're all finished here, put these out for you to look at. And I'll trim off the extra plastic here in a little while. But right now you've got yourself a really good looking creature bait, and you've got the craw bait. And these of course are the Carolina pumpkin. Here's what they look like from what I did yesterday in my watermelon. On this watermelon one I gave it a white belly, which is kind of a cool look. That's a tough little pour. You do the hand pour for the belly and then injection for the rest of it. And then of course I've already shown you the beaver bait. Again, that's the same thing. I did a white belly, and that's a hand pour. I'll pour half of the mold with the white, and then I inject the top half, which is the watermelon here. So there you go. Those are the two colors I'm making right now. I'm making the watermelon, I'm making Carolina pumpkin. Both great baits. You're going to catch you some fish. This is the scary look of a man wearing protective gear. This is it. This is the protective gear that you guys want to be wearing when you pour this stuff. It looks pretty scary, but it will protect you.